I've spent a lot of time over the last year, over the last 2 years, criticizing the um, varying ministers for digital culture, media, and arts, or whatever it's called now. That is Nadine Dorries, Michelle Donnellan, and oh gosh, Fraser, can't remember her first name now. Lucy Fraser. And I don't know about the latest incarnation, but certainly she hasn't captured the headlines. I can barely remember her name. And this is the problem. This ministry is handed to people who don't seem to have a great interest in the arts. And the arts have suffered grievously, not only because of COVID, when theatres were closed and very little support was really offered to those people who make theatre. Many people who appear on stage are self-employed, and there was very little support to compensate people for not being in work, for not being able to go up for the jobs that they would normally go up for the dark theatres. And the theatre is barely getting back up and running again. In fact, over Christmas, when it was back up and running, it was completely, the pantomime season was completely sabotaged by the rail strikes. Perfectly reasonable for the rail companies to go on strike, I suppose, but actually it was the Minister of DCMS who should have been standing up for the arts, and she wasn't. She was nowhere to be seen. That's the problem. The problem is the indifference of the ministers to the scale of the problem that Brexit presented and then that COVID presented, and the sheer need to get this problem sorted out, because the arts contribute a huge amount to our economy. 6% to the British economy is contributed by the arts. 6%. I believe that's £116 billion. So, for example, £2.5 billion in music, £7 billion in the games industry, £7 billion. And, there's 2,200 different games firms. I worked for one at one point. 73,300 jobs, and at the moment, the games industry itself is facing a serious skills shortage. There are getting on for 3,000 jobs, at least, that are vacant. And the games industry cannot recruit people because it's so difficult to get people from Europe, from abroad, people who have the skills. This is the problem that Brexit produces. And these companies will collapse. These companies are very small indeed. They cannot cope with the level of red tape that Brexit has needlessly produced. It's like staring down a lavatory and finding there is a blockage in the U-bend. And the government, the plumbers, simply cannot be bothered to come out and fix it. That is what we are facing. We are facing a plumbing problem. And meanwhile, these same ministers are dumping whatever they possibly can into the loo in the hope that something will pass through. It won't. It needs a plumber. And the indifferent dumping serves no purpose. This obsession with social media serves no purpose, because there will be nothing to talk about in the end, because our creative industries are going to have to go abroad. And these creative industries, which are so extraordinarily British, even if the ideas come from here, the actual nuts and bolts of putting them together and making them work will have to be exported to Korea or somewhere. Because the talent to do these jobs is being driven out of the country. You only have to look at the things which were available in Europe over the last 6 years, over the last 3 years, there was a fund called Creative Europe. And if we had had access to that now, we would have had £163 million since Brexit. And our government has provided £7 million since Brexit. We would have had tax breaks through European agreements between 37 and 50%. Our government has provided us with 25% tax breaks if we can actually access them. So it's not that we are losing customers and losing jobs, we're also losing all the benefits that we had by being in Brexit. So that U-bend blockage, which was put there by our own government, which has been further blocked by indifferent ministers, is backing up all our talent. Our talent cannot stay here. Our talent will have to use somewhere else. And when it comes to music, for example, musicians for the last 40 years, and even before then actually, have honed their skills on international tours, going to Europe, playing around in Europe. Ed Sheeran didn't get where he is now by going around Britain. He went around Europe. And yet today there's a 45% drop in the possible options for musicians to travel around Europe. If you're an opera singer, you go and study in Germany and you hone your skills in Germany, or Italy if you're really lucky. Again, that's so difficult now. So difficult now. What I call for is not further investment at this moment, but simply that the minister in charge does something, that the minister answers letters, that the minister responds, that the minister deals with the issues which are facing the industry. And this is why I criticised Nadine Dorries. This is why I criticised Michelle Donnellan. This is why I would criticise anybody in that post if they don't do their job, which they don't. They distract because they're not really interested. Maybe they're interested in sport. I don't know. Maybe sport has done better than the arts. But the arts contributes a great deal. People come to this country, or they used to come to this country, to see Judi Dench on stage, to see the great musicals in the West End, to see the great Shakespeare performances at Stratford. Are they going to continue to do this in the future? Are they going to be there to be seen? That's the question. That's the question. Are these innovative animation studios, which I remember from my childhood, the Richard Williams animation studio in Soho. I remember going around that area of London when I was 11, 12, 13, and being staggered by the number of creative film studios, little studios, churning out adverts, churning out creative stuff. They're not doing it so much now. And Brexit has not helped. Tell me how Brexit has helped, please. I want to know. I've been asking this again and again. How has Brexit helped? And particularly now. Let's ask about this particular issue. How has Brexit helped the arts? Please tell me.